Welcome, guys, Fraser Valley students, wherever you guys are in your classrooms. This is another episode of PB Talks. And we have a guest. Last week, we had Cess Lee sharing her story. And this week, I want to bring in a special guest of mine, one of my best friends, Marc Andrade, Pastor Marc. He is the chaplain at PAA Parkview Adventist Academy in Lacombe, Alberta. And so he's going to share a little bit about reconnecting today. So, Pastor Marc, tell us a little bit about yourself so people can know a little bit about who you are.
Sure. Okay. First of all, I love that PB Talks. That's a good one. I like that. A little bit of myself. I mean, you said it. I'm a chaplain at PA and CHCS. Just started this year. Before this, I was teaching for 4 years as a Bible teacher, high school Bible teacher at Chinook Woods Adventist Academy. I don't know. What about myself? Like, I like to coach basketball. I like to play ball. I like music. I like leading out in praise bands and stuff. And I do have a passion for teaching specifically like young people about the character of God, and really allow them to see who he really is and how he presents himself in the Bible. And that's what I love to do.
Awesome. I was going to ask you a little bit. So I've told you this before we recorded. Our school theme this year is reconnecting. It's been a long time. We had pretty much like 3 months after in the middle of the school year off, right, where we had to be at home. And we had 2 months after in the summer. And then, it's been a long time since we've been together. We're just getting back in together. But getting back to being together. It's been a month since school started. And now we've gone through a month with changes, etc. And we're just thinking about like, how can we reconnect with each other, reconnect with God? And connecting with God has been a hard thing for a lot of our older kids, being just at home without like a spiritual group with everybody. And so my question to you is like, how have you found yourself able to connect with God? Like, what helps you connect with God?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I think it's tough to answer because we're not dealing with something that we ever dealt with before. Like I was just in a staff meeting and we were talking about how, we're just talking about how like different students and like different people are kind of just acting differently. They've just been different since we came back from like quarantine and stuff. And how in reality, it's like what we're not ready for, what our society's not ready for is like the mental health issues that come out of like our world getting like rocked like that. Not just like being home all the time and being like on our screens and like gaming and watching movies all the time, but like even just like having that feeling on our minds, like anything can go wrong at this point, like people losing jobs, people not knowing what's coming next, that truthfully like coming out of this thing, like we've all just suffered some trauma in one way or another. And that's why reconnection, I think, like connecting with God just looks different. Like it's looked different for me personally, especially coming out of this, because I think this is the answer to your question. When I was quarantined and I was teaching back home, like, to be honest with you, like I was resting a lot, like there was a lot of like free time. I didn't have to do like the whole like 7-8 hours straight of teaching. So when it came to connecting God, like let's say, especially on the Sabbath day, like I found it hard because like, honestly, like I was kind of resting and chilling 6 days already. So when the seventh day came, I was like, I'm having a hard time just trying to like rest and spend my Sabbath with God. And it's funny because like in the 10 Commandments, like when God's like 6 days shalt thou labor, like that's part of the command too, right? Like you got to work those 6 days and the seventh day you'll need the rest. Like it's natural that we're going to need that rest. But because of this quarantine, like, man, like it really like, it just messed up everybody's schedules, I think. And reconnecting has to look different, especially now. I don't know.
I think, like you're saying, everything has changed and shifted. And so reconnecting has to look different so that we can go forward to connect properly. Because if we just try and connect the exact same way, I think it could be a struggle, or things could just mess up. So we have to innovate. What were like ways, like for you, like when you were younger, when you were a kid, what were the ways that you connected with God, or that you were taught to connect with God, that you found are different now?
Man, when I was a kid, it was weird because my mom, coming from the Philippines, she's like a really spiritual lady, and not just spiritual like with God, like spiritual with like everything. Like like demons and all this stuff. She used to teach me and my bro, like there's like these little demons that would like steal us away if we didn't put money on our bed sheets. And there's a point to this. I just remember like one thing that my mom taught me when I was young was like at any moment, anytime you're afraid, I think this is the most valuable thing she really honestly like ever taught me. She's like, at any time like you're afraid or scared, and I always was because I slept in the same room with my bro. And my bro was always having like nightmares or like waking up in the middle of the night being like, there's like a kid like behind the door. Like he just always like wake up with all these like scary things going on. My mom was like, if you're ever afraid, like you just talk to God like he's your friend. Because my mom was working like double time hours, and so was my dad, and we were alone a lot. And I just like, since I was a little kid, my mom taught me this valuable lesson of just like communicating with God as I talk to like a friend, as I talk to anybody. And I just think that at a young age, understanding that, like, that's the one thing that sticks with me even today, actually.
Thanks for already, like, I know you've already said so much important. I don't want to have to keep you here forever, but what type of advice would you give our kids at Fraser or anyone who's listening to this, advice to connect or finding new ways to connect, or what are things that work for you, and how do you get there to connect with God?
I think like the one thing I could give, one piece of advice I could give is to understand like, why do we even want to connect with God? Like no one introduces a good friend by saying like, hey, you got to get to know this person. And the person says, why? And you're like, well, you just have to, or else if you don't, like, you know what I mean? Like there's no consequence in not getting to know a friend. And with God, I think it's the same thing. We need to understand, why do I even need to connect with him? Because ultimately, like connecting with him is going to look different. Like for some who have gifts of music, some who have gifts of service, some who have gifts of words of affirmation, reading makes a little bit more sense for them. It could be church. It could be a walk in the park. That's what I love to do. At the end of the day, we got to know why we do it. And at the very core of like God's law, it's like, love one another as I have loved you. And God understands that the one thing that we value as people, whether we're not a spiritual person at all, it's like we love to be valued by people, and we love to value other people. I remember just watching this TED Talk where the guy says, at the end of the day, the most happy people are those who know they're valued by people. And I think God understood when he created us that the law that we have to abide by, this natural law to abide by, is that we need to love other people. And the best way we can do that is if we reconnect to the source of love. It's crazy. God doesn't say like, love me as I have loved you. He's like, love others as I have loved you. He's like the infinite source of it. And if we go back to the source, we'll be able to love one another unconditionally. And honestly, that's kind of the big problem of our society and our world today, the lack of love for one another. So I like to do it by going for walks. I call them ISOs. But I think it's different for everybody. But I think at the core of it is understanding, why do I need to reconnect with God?
All right. Thank you so much, Pastor Marc, for coming on and sharing with Fraser Valley Events Academy.
Thanks.
All right, guys. Take care. We'll see you guys all very soon.